Hello, Venerables. How are you? Hope you are hale and hearty. Welcome to week 7 of the semester. And for this course, Essence of Buddhadhamma, welcome to lecture 7, the Noble Eightfold Path, Morality. In the last two lectures, 5 and 6, we have covered the 4 Noble Truths. So today, we'll take a look at the first component of the Noble Eightfold Path, morality. And then next week, we will take a look at the second component, mental development. And the week after next, the third component, wisdom. All right? So for today, we will start off with the role of faith, then moving on to take a look at a conceptual understanding of morality, then moving on to the 3 aspects of morality: right speech, right action, right livelihood, and then the practice of morality 1, precepts. Well, we will stop halfway through here for the first half of this lecture, and then in the second half we will continue with the practice of morality 2, family relations and social relations, the practice of morality 3, economic welfare and political governance, and then a few words on your homework and reflections 4, which should be submitted by 26th of October. Okay, so let us then move on. The role of faith. Now, the starting point of the Buddhist path is faith, or sraddha, sada, or confidence in the triple gem, right? The Buddha, his teaching, Dharma, and the community, Sangha, of those who have followed and realized the teaching. So it is said in the Pali Canon that a Tathagata appears in the world. He teaches the Dharma that is beautiful in the beginning, beautiful in the middle, and beautiful in the end. A householder or a householder's son or someone born into some family hears that Dharma. And hearing the Dharma, he gains faith in the Tathagata. Okay, so the starting point of Buddhism, just like any other religion, is faith. And here we mean confidence, right? Confidence in the triple gem, in the Buddha, in his teachings, and in the community, Sangha. Those people who can do the teachings after the Buddha's parinibbana. So the Buddha's teachings is so beautiful that we are all monks and we want to spread his teachings to benefit all beings. So this is the starting point of Buddhism and of any religion, faith. Now, faith is a positive emotional response to someone or something one has heard or read, usually seen in devotional and ritual expression. Buddhist texts understand faith in the Buddha and Dharma in terms of trust, confidence, affection, and devotion inspired by the person of the Buddha and his teachings. A confidence that there is indeed a path leading to the cessation or end of suffering which has been walked by the Buddha and his followers. Okay, so when we talk about faith, yeah, it is something positive, something emotional, right? Because of something that we have heard or we have been taught. And normally this is seen particularly in religious places of worship. In the Buddhist case, for instance, in temples, right? Or in meditation centers. In temples, we do devotions, we do chanting, we do rituals. Okay? So faith in Buddhism, we talk about having a certain degree of confidence, of trust, of affection, right? That we like something, and of devotion, yeah? Because we are so inspired by the life of the Buddha and by his teachings. Since his teachings teach us that life is not just suffering, but we can end our suffering as long as we follow his teachings. And then his disciples throughout these thousands of years all over the world have demonstrated the truth, the validity of his teachings. So based on his life, on his teachings, and all the examples set by his disciples, verifying the truth of his teachings, we have faith in the triple gem, the Buddha, his teaching, and the Sangha. And of course, we're not talking about blind faith, right? We've already mentioned this before. The Buddha's advice to the Kalamas. The Kalamas, the householders of a particular town, so many sort of religious teachings they have come across with, and then they ask the Buddha, oh, how should we know which teachings are true? So Buddha told them, do not reject or accept anything because of tradition, scripture, reasoning, logic, or argument, or out of respect for some aesthetic, but rather because of our own direct knowledge. Okay, so we're not talking about blind faith here, but faith verifiable based on our own understanding, practice, and realization. Now, the traditional expression of one's faith or one's commitment to the Buddhist path is the act of going to the three jewels or the triple gem of the Buddhadhamma and Sangha for refuge. So, for instance, we say, I take refuge in the Buddha, I take refuge in the Dhamma, I take refuge in the Sangha. Or in Pali, Buddham Saranam Gacchami, Dhammam Saranam Gacchami, Sangham Saranam Gacchami. Chinese, 皈依佛, 皈依法, 皈依僧. So this is the normal way in which we express our faith in the Buddhist path, right? By seeking refuge in the triple gem. Now, going for refuge in two ways: the way of the male lay follower, upasaka, or female lay follower, upasika, and then the way of the monastics, right? Of the ordained monk, bhiksu or bhikkhu, or the nun, bhikshuni or bhikkhuni. And of course, the monastic way represents the ultimate commitment to the religious life, the ultimate expression of faith. So for a person who seeks refuge, can be a lay person, right? Male or female, or can be a monastic like all of us here, monks or nuns. The form of the earliest devotions probably centered around the worship of stupas. Stupas are structures that contain sacred relics, right? Relics, for instance, of the Buddha, of famous Buddhist masters. And worship was probably was and is continued to be expressed in the making of offerings, especially of flowers, right? Of incense, of lamps, and then the chanting of verses as the basis for the recollection of the qualities of the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. So here, for instance, we see devotees worshipping at Sridagon Pagoda, the most sacred, the most famous pagoda in Myanmar, right? And this is in Yangon. The stupas, as you can see, the sort of a pyramidal structures. And then we have worship here with flowers, with incense, with lamps, right? Light. Okay, so flowers, and of course all these have symbolic meanings, yeah? Flowers, we talk about impermanence, isn't it? Flowers will blossom and then they will wither. And then we talk about incense, the fragrance, right? The fragrance of the Buddha's teachings. And then lamps, light, we talk about wisdom, okay? Now, early Buddhist art was probably aniconic, right? Aniconic means it avoided representing the Buddha in human form, and instead it used such symbols as an empty seat beneath the tree of awakening or the wheel of Dharma. And then from the 2nd century onwards, the Buddha image increasingly became a focus for devotions and meditation. So in the earliest times, right, when we talk about representations of the Buddha, it was not in human form. Well, we know the Buddha gained enlightenment in the Bodhi tree, so symbols like the empty seat beneath the Bodhi tree, or we talk about the wheel of Dharma, right, the Dhamma chakra representing the Eight Noble Path, on the Noble Eightfold Path. So all these are what we call iconic, right? Iconic is the Buddha in human form, and iconic means not in human form. And then later on, from the 2nd century onwards, we have the Buddha's images in human form becoming a focus. All right. Now, another ancient ritual practice in Buddhism was the recitation of certain sutras as protective charms, known as raksa or parita. The Vinaya describes monks circumambulating a monastery and chanting to protect the Buddha when they believe his life is threatened. And one of the oldest such protective chants is the Atanatiya Sutta, a charm to protect the monk meditating in the forest from unsympathetic demons, or yaksa or yakka. Okay, so since the early times, there was this the ritual practice of recitation. We recite certain sutras, and these sutras are seen to have a protection value. Okay, so in the Vinaya, one of the basket of the Pali Canon, we talk about monks going around, right, the monastery and then chanting, these sutras. So this stupas here, it is actually from Borobudur, the one in the picture that you see in central Java, very famous. So chanting of sutras to protect us from evil forces. And ritual acts such as going for refuge, taking the precepts, and chanting sutras are expressions of deep faith and trust in the Buddha's teaching. They are generally seen as having a protective quality, keeping the mind free of fear and warding off danger. So when we talk about expressing our faith, right, in terms of devotion, in terms of ritual performances, like seeking refuge in the Triple Gem, like taking the precepts, which we'll talk about later, and like chanting sutras, all this, express our confidence in the Buddha's teaching. And when we do this, we are protected by the Buddha's teachings. We are protected by the power of the good. So we talk about a protective quality, and this keep our mind free of fear and help us to ward away negative forces. Okay. So on the left here, we have a book on faith and devotion in Theravada Buddhism. And then on the right, we have a quotation. On the long journey of human life, faith is the best of companions. All right, so we should develop strong faith in the Triple Gem. And if we can do so throughout our life, we will have a very good companion, right? Faith as our companion. So faith and the activities which express that faith are seen as performing a spiritually crucial function. They soothe and settle the mind, thereby arousing the confidence to continue the practice of the path. Moreover, the mind that is quietly confident and trustful of the power of the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha is its own protection. In sum, devotional and ritual practice constitutes a preliminary meditation practice, settling and composing the mind in preparation for the higher stages of Buddhist meditative practice. So we talk about the value of faith, right? It's very important, because once we have faith, we can calm our mind, right? Our mind can be more peaceful. And once we have a peaceful, calm mind, we will be further motivated to continue the teachings to continue learning the teachings of the Buddha, and to continue practicing and then realizing the teachings of the Buddha. And then when our mind is calm, confident, and we believe in the power of the Buddha's teachings and the power of the good, our mind is protected. Yeah. So with a calm mind, it is easier for us to then go on to the next stage of our practice, which is meditation. Right? So this is the first part on the role of faith, the importance of faith, the value of faith in Buddhism. And of course, in other religions, faith is a starting point too. All right? So now we will move on to part 2, which is a concept of morality 2. If you have your lecture 7 notes with you, we are on page 2 now. If not, it is fine. Just listen carefully to this PowerPoint presentation, and then you can go back to your lecture notes and review it after this presentation. Okay? Now, here we use the term morality, but in Buddhist texts, instead of morality, some texts use good conduct, and some texts use ethical discipline or ethical conduct, right? So they all mean the same thing. Morality, good conduct, ethical discipline. It forms the foundation of further progress on the Buddhist path of further personal development. And morality is the basis of all positive qualities, virtues, and attainments, ranging from the mundane or the relative to the supramundane or the absolute, from success and good fortune to skill in meditation, and ultimately wisdom and enlightenment. Just as the earth is the basis of all animate and inanimate things. So when we talk about morality or good conduct or ethical discipline, it is very important because it forms the foundation. So just like the pyramid here, right? Look at this picture. Shila is at the very bottom, right? At the foundation. Yeah. So whatever we do, right, in our life, it is very important to have a strong foundation. So here, morality is the foundation, and then from then on, we can move on to samadhi or mental development and panya or wisdom. Okay, so a foundation is just like the earth, right? Which is the from the earth we have all kinds of things, right? Living things and non-living things. So the basis of all animate and inanimate things. Okay, so Shila, or living by virtuous principles or acts as a firm foundation for the development of concentration, which acts as a firm foundation for the development of insight, which leads to liberation. This is taken from one of the Nikaya, Anguttara Nikaya of the Pali Canon. And morality is built on the vast conception of universal love and compassion for all living beings, on which the Buddha's teaching is based. The Buddha gave his teaching for the good of the many, for the happiness of the many, out of compassion for the world. So upon enlightenment, right, the Buddha taught all of us, spent the next 45 years of his life delivering his teachings, imparting his teachings to all beings, out of his compassion, so that all beings can learn how to be good, so that all beings can attain happiness and ultimately realization. So the aim of the Buddhist life is to develop two qualities equally: compassion, karuna, and wisdom, panya. Compassion refers to love, charity, kindness, tolerance, and such noble qualities on the emotional side or qualities of the heart. And wisdom refers to the intellectual side or qualities of the mind. So if one develops only the emotional, neglecting the intellectual, one may become a good-hearted fool. To develop only the intellectual side, neglecting the emotional, may turn one into a hard-hearted intellectual without feeling for others. So in our practice, it is very important to have both compassion and wisdom, right? They are like the two wings of a bird. We need both wings in order to fly. yeah, the wing of compassion and the wing of wisdom. So here in this picture, we repeat, summarize, Shila is based on love and compassion for all beings, and both qualities, compassion and wisdom, should be developed equally for a person to become perfect. And compassion, love, charity, kindness, tolerance, and such noble qualities of the heart, and wisdom, the ability to penetrate into the real nature of things and understand things without being clouded, yeah, with delusion or ignorance. Okay, we've come across Matthew Ricard, right? The happiest man on earth, a French man who had a PhD in molecular genetics, yeah, a scientist, and then became a Tibetan monk and has been the French interpreter of the 14th Dalai Lama since 1989. He has written many books, including the famous one called Altruism. And here he tells us wisdom and compassion should become the dominating influences that guide our thoughts, our words, and our actions. So wisdom and compassion should guide all our bodily actions, our speech, and our mind. Okay? And here we have the famous Master Seng Yun. Master Seng Yun, he was born in 1927, and so he's 93 years old now, right? Born in China and then went on to moved over to Taiwan, and one of the most famous Buddhist masters in Taiwan and Chinese Buddhism. He's the founder of Guangshan, or Buddhist Light Mountain. So on the left here, you can see Master Seng Yun happily ever after, right? And then on the right, on the top, you see the Guangshan headquarters in Kaohsiung, southern Taiwan. Right? Very majestic, very grand. And Guangshan, Mountains Light Mountain, has branches all over the world, including Singapore. Right? So it is a global Buddhist center. And it has also founded several universities, including University of the West in California, or known as CLI. Some of our students have, BCS students have studied in CLI in California. And one of our graduating students, right, Shen Le from Vietnam, will also be going, or maybe is already there, in the University of CLI to do his master's. And Guangshan also has the Nan Tien Institute in New South Wales in Australia, where they offer master's degrees. Okay, one of our graduating students actually, Chuan, has been offered a scholarship to study in Nan Tien, yeah, but because getting a visa in Australia for Sri Lankans are very difficult, and particularly in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic, Chuan decided not to pursue this option for graduate studies in Nan Tien in Australia, but decided to continue. So he's right now doing his master's in BCS, right? Continue his master's in BCS. Okay, so Master Seng Yun tells us that patience is a kind of wisdom and compassion. We are talking about wisdom and compassion, so we can be patient, right? We can also actually develop wisdom and compassion. Okay, now the moral teachings of the major religions of the world, they all show a high degree of agreement. Okay, which means that there are many things which the major religions of the world are similar, agree on. So underlying such rules of good conduct are the principles of equality and reciprocity. Now, what do we mean by equality and reciprocity? The principle of equality is that all living beings are the same in their basic orientation and outlook. They all want to be happy, and they all want to avoid suffering and death. This then also encourages us to act in accordance to the principle of reciprocity. So when we talk about the principle of equality, we're saying that all living creatures, right? All living beings, we're all the same. In what ways are we the same? We all want to be alive and want to be happy, right? And we all want to avoid suffering and death. So in this respect, we're all the same, whether we are a human being or an insect or an animal. Yeah, we're all the same in this regard, wanting life and avoiding suffering and death. So arising from this, we have the principle of reciprocity. Just as we would not like to be abused, robbed, injured, or killed, so all other living beings are unwilling to have such things happen to them. So the very famous principle of reciprocity is expressed in these words: do not act towards others in a way you would not want them to act towards you. All right. So Buddhism teaches this principle of reciprocity, and all the major religions also teach this principle of reciprocity. Do not act towards others in a way you would not want them to act towards you. So let us take a quick look. In Christianity, it is said, in everything, do to others as you would have them do to you, for this is the law and the prophets, Jesus and Matthew. In Sikhism, there's a saying that goes, I'm a stranger to no one, and no one is a stranger to me. Indeed, I'm a friend to all. Guru Granth Sahib. In Islam, not one of you truly believes until you wish for others what you wish for yourself. The Prophet Muhammad in the Hadith. In Zoroastrianism, do not do unto others whatever is injurious to yourself. In the holy text, Shayash na Shayash. In Hinduism, this is the sum of duty. Do not do to others what would cause pain if done to you. In the Mahabharata, Buddhism, of course, treat not others in ways that you yourself would find hurtful. In this text, Udana Varga. In Judaism, the Jewish religion, what is hateful to you, do not do to your neighbor. This is the whole Torah. All the rest is commentary, according to the Hillel Talmud Shabbat. In Jainism, one should treat all creatures in the world as one would like to be treated, according to Mahavira Sutra Kritanga. And in Taoism, regard your neighbor's gain as your own gain, and your neighbor's loss as your own loss. In Taishan Gan Yin Taishan Gan Yin Pian. Okay, and similar Confucianism, right? Which is the ethical teachings of East Asia influencing China, Japan, Korea, and Vietnam. The Analects of Confucius, one of the major texts of Confucius, contains one of the earliest versions of this golden rule. Somebody, Zigong, asked Confucius, is there one word which may serve as a rule of practice for all one's life? And Master Confucius said, is not reciprocity such a word? What you do not want done to yourself, do not do to others. Okay? So the principles of equality, the principles of reciprocity, we can find it in Buddhism and all the major religions of the world. So in this context, remember Master Shen Yan, the founder of Dharma Drum Mountain with global branches all over the world, he also emphasizes the same point. Compassion has no limit. Kindness has no enemy. Be compassionate. Be kind. Likewise, right? Master Zhen Yan, the founder of Tzu Chi, a charity organization with branches all over the world, tells us only by treating others with kindness can one lead a happy and peaceful life. So here we have Master Zhen Yan, the headquarters in Taiwan, which we have mentioned before. Yeah, and she's known as the Mother Teresa of Taiwan, the Master of Love and Mercy. Okay, so she teaches us the importance of compassion and kindness. Yeah, the principles of equality and reciprocity. So when we talk about the Buddhist practice of morality or good conduct or ethical discipline, it includes three parts of the Noble Eightfold Path. And this is right speech, sama vacha, right action, sama kamanta, and right livelihood, sama ajiva. Okay? So the Buddhist ethical and moral conduct aims at promoting harmony and happiness for the life of the individual and society. And morality also forms the indispensable foundation for all higher spiritual attainments. So now let us move on to take a look at each of these three components, right? Beginning with right speech. Now, do not underestimate the power of a speech, for a harsh word can wound more deeply than a weapon, whereas a gentle word can change the heart and mind of even the most hardened criminal. So right speech is important. Yeah, it shows respect for truth and respect for the well-being of others. If we wish to create a society in which communication, cooperation, harmony, and well-being are goals to be attained, we must control, cultivate, discipline, and use our speech in helpful ways. So before we speak, think. Is it true? Is it helpful? Is it inspiring? Is it necessary? Is it kind? So THINK, right? This is an acronym. It helps us to memorize. T stands for true. H stands for helpful. I stands for inspiring. N stands for necessary. A K stands for kind. So before we speak, THINK, true, helpful, inspiring, necessary, or kind? Yeah. If so, then we speak. Now, there are four aspects of right speech: the avoidance of lying, the avoidance of backbiting, slander, tale-bearing, divisive speech, the avoidance of harsh speech, and the avoidance of idle, frivolous, or vain talk. So let's start with lying. Now, lying opens the door to all kinds of unwholesome acts. It is to be avoided not only because it often harms others, but because it goes against the Buddhist value of seeking the truth and seeing things as they really are. The more a person lies to others, the more he is likely to deceive himself. Thus, his delusion and spiritual ignorance increase. Okay, so when we lie, we are engaging in all kinds of unwholesome acts. We are cheating ourselves. We are cheating others. Yeah, and we should avoid this, because by cheating ourselves and by cheating others, right, we can harm others. At the same time, when we lie, we are creating a false world, right? We are not seeing things as they really are. Already the Buddha teaches us that this world that we see is just conventional reality. It is not the ultimate reality. So if within this conventional reality, we then create another world of lies, right? A web of lies. Then we're creating more delusion, right? We're creating more ignorance for ourselves. So a delusion within already a delusory world, and this will obstruct us from pursuing the ultimate reality. That's why it is said that the more a person lies to others, the more he is likely to deceive himself, and hence his delusion and ignorance will increase. So the Buddha here, for instance, used the analogy of the vessel and mirror to teach Rahula, right, his son, the importance of not lying. So Rahula, his son, subsequently became the first Samanera, right, the first novice monk. And Rahula is known for his habit of lying, of telling lies. So the Buddha used the analogy of the vessel, right? A vessel of water, asked Rahula to wash the Buddha's feet in it, and then asking Rahula, look at this vessel of water, right? What is it like? So Rahula said it is dirty and filthy, right? So the Buddha teaches Rahula, if you lie, whenever somebody lies, his words are like dirt and filth, just like this vessel of water, right? Dirty and filthy. And then look at the mirror, right? A mirror reflects the truth. So if you speak the truth, then we are like the mirror reflecting the truth. So we should not lie, and we should always speak the truth. Okay? Next, let us move on to backbiting, slander, tale-bearing, or divisive speech. Now, when we engage in this kind of a divisive speech, it usually results in quarrels between friends and pain and discord in society. Right? So we should use words that are pleasant, that are friendly, and that are benevolent. And we engage in harsh speech, we will abuse others. As such, we should not abuse others with harsh words or with rude words. We should speak gently and courteously to others as we would like them to speak to us. We should also avoid idle, frivolous, or vain talk, right? It is because it is not productive to engage in useless chatter and gossip. So we should always try to speak in a meaningful and useful way. We should speak at the right time and right place, and we should not speak carelessly. If we cannot say something useful, it is better to keep noble silence. So take a look at this chart here. Before we speak, think, is it true or not true? If it's not true, don't speak. If it's true, is it beneficial or not beneficial? If it's not beneficial, don't speak. If it's beneficial, will it be accepted or not accepted? If it's not accepted, wait for the right time and then speak. If it's accepted, then speak. Well, this is a summary of the Abhaya Sutta to Prince Abhaya, translated from the Pali by Thanissaro Bhikkhu, right? From one of the texts in the Pali canon. Okay? And then if you really not the right time to speak, then maintain silence, right? The Dalai Lama teaches us silence is sometimes the best answer. Observe noble silence. That's why when we go for meditation retreats, right? We always observe noble silence, yeah? And we do not engage in unnecessary speech. The Buddha said, pleasant speech is as sweet as honey. Truthful speech is beautiful like a flower, and wrong speech is unwholesome like filth. Hence, for our own good and the good of others, we should cultivate right speech, respect both for truth and for the welfare of others. So, let us recall right speech, right? Perfect speech or right speech is one that is truthful, affectionate, helpful, and which promotes concord. Concord means peace and harmony. Peace, harmony, and unity. Right speech reflects inner wisdom, clear vision, and Buddha nature, and represents the ideal of human communication. Imperfect speech or wrong speech is untruthful, harsh, harmful, and promotes discord, disharmony, and disunity. Okay, so this is the importance of engaging in right speech and avoiding lying, divisive speech, harsh speech, and frivolous talk. All right. So on this note, let us then move on to the next aspect, which is right action. Now, there are three aspects of right action, and this is the avoidance of killing, avoidance of stealing, and avoidance of sexual misconduct. We engage in right action because we want to promote honorable and peaceful conduct. So take a look at this chart here. To avoid harming living beings, right? So in the small little pictures on the left, we have a hen, right? Mother hen helping an old lady to cross the roads, doing good. Avoid evil, do good. And then the second picture of somebody fighting, right? So we should avoid harming living beings. And the third, right? Money, right? Everybody wanting it. So we should avoid taking what is not given. And then third, the rightmost picture, we see a couple, yeah? And this should remind us to avoid sexual misconduct. Okay? Now, killing. It is said in the Dhammapada that all living beings tremble at the prospect of punishment. All fear death and all love life. Hence, we should respect for life and not kill living beings. Yeah. So in this regard, yeah, when we talk about refraining from killing, Buddhism is of course also against war and against all acts of violence. Buddhism is against abortion, right? Abortion means killing a baby, right, in the mother's womb before it is born, abortion. And Buddhism is of course against suicide, right, taking off one's life. So avoid harming living beings, avoid the first part. So the Dalai Lama tells us to follow the 3 R's. And what is this 3 R's? Respect for self, respect for ourselves, respect for others, and exercise responsibility for all our actions. Okay, so respect ourselves, respect others, and be responsible in whatever we do. And when we practice gratefulness, there is a sense of respect towards others. Yeah, so he emphasizes the importance of practicing gratefulness. If we can be grateful for everything, for every moment, then we're actually showing respect, not just for ourselves, but respect towards others. Yeah, and if we are grateful, we can also be responsible for our actions. So likewise, Master Zheng Yan, the founder of Cixi charity organizations all over the world, tell us, be grateful always for everything and everyone at every moment. So this is the power, right, of the practice of always being grateful. Now, right action, second aspect is to avoid stealing, not to rob, not to take what is not given, or to cheat others. The employer who does not pay his employee an honest wage commensurate with the work performed is guilty of taking what is not given. The employee who collects a salary but shirks his duties is equally guilty. So, and in this regard, we should have respect for property. So the property of others, we should not take. If it's not given to us, we should not steal, we should not cheat, right? It's just like somebody who has a job, right? If he collects a salary, he must be responsible and do his work well. If not, he's also cheating his employer, right? And the same thing, the employer, if his employee works very hard, works well, but he does not pay them appropriately, does not give them a suitable salary, then he's also cheating his employee. It's just like many foreign workers, right? When it comes to, let's say, Singapore, let's say if the employers just make use of them and do not give them an adequate salary, then the employee is actually cheating them. Yeah, is actually stealing, is actually taking away something that the foreign worker should deserve in terms of his contributions. Yeah, so we should have respect for property. The third aspect is sexual misconduct. Avoid adultery, to avoid incest, right? That means having sex with family members, relatives. We should avoid any enforced intercourse, right? When somebody does not give a permission, this is rape, right? We should avoid that. We should avoid intercourse with those married or engaged to another or under the protection of relatives. So we should, avoid having sex with people who are already married. This is adultery, right? If we do that, or people who are already engaged, or people who are minors, below the age of maturity, and who are under the protection of guardians or relatives. Yeah, and we should not be obsessed with sexual activities. We should not have relations with people who can be harmed by such relations. So more generally, we should have respect for personal relationships. So here we are, of course, is advice that you should give to your devotees or householders, yeah, or lay people. And for us, of course, we must be celibate, avoid sex, whatever form it is, right? So in this picture here, we see a couple engaging in sexual intercourse, right? And lust, of course, is a form of greed. Well, in Tibetan Buddhism, we have a bird. The bird is used to represent greed or attachments, yeah? So lust is a form of greed, a form of attachment, a form of craving. Okay, so this wraps up the right action to avoid killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct. So let us then move on to right livelihood. Now, sama ajiva, right? Right livelihood is an extension of the rules of right action to our roles as breadwinners in society. We should earn a living in a way that does not violate these basic moral values. And the 5 aspects of right livelihood is to avoid trades or avoid occupations, avoid livelihoods in lethal weapons or arms, first. Second, avoid animals for slaughter. Third, avoid slavery or cheating other people, right? Cheating human beings. Fourth, avoid poisons. And fifth, avoid jobs or livelihoods relating to intoxicants such as drugs and alcohol. These 5 traits, these 5 types of occupations are not recommended because they contribute to the ills of society and violate the rules of respect, the values of respect for life and for the welfare of others. They also lead to insecurity, discord, and suffering in the world. So following up from the right actions of not to kill, not to steal, and not to engage in sexual misconduct, it logically brings us to right livelihood. We must not engage in actions, in livelihood, in jobs, in occupations that violate right action. Yeah. So we should therefore avoid this kind of 5 occupations, as we can see from the chart, right? Avoid arms, lethal weapons, intoxicating drinks, poisons, killing animals, and cheating human beings, right? Or slavery. So the guiding principle here is to work for the happiness of oneself and for others. So this is right livelihood, sama ajiva. Okay, so we have covered right speech, right action, and right livelihood. These 3 aspects of the first component of the Noble Eightfold Path, or the first component of good conduct, of ethical discipline. Now let us then move on to take a look at the practice of morality in terms of precepts, right? Now the goal of the Buddhist path is to eradicate the unwholesome motivations that cause harmful behavior. To achieve this, our mind needs to be trained, needs to be disciplined. Yeah? And part of this training, part of this disciplining of our mind involves the undertaking of various precepts, literally principles or basis of training known as sisapada or sikapada, to restrain our mind and to draw it back from the grosser kinds of unwholesome behavior. Okay, so what we want to do in our practice as a Buddhist devotee is to move away from unwholesomeness to wholesomeness, right? Is to transform unwholesomeness to wholesomeness. So in the picture here, unwholesomeness in red, crime, aggression, violence, war, killing, racism, anger. We want to move towards wholesomeness, unselfish, happiness, sensitivity, kindness, justice, humanism, goodness. Okay, so what we want to do is to transform unwholesomeness to wholesomeness, to transform self-centeredness, selfishness, ego to selflessness, and if we can do so, we will be able to transform our suffering to happiness. And so when we take precepts, they help us to do such a transformation, right? So these precepts are like basis of training, Sikkhapada. All right, and what are these precepts? Let us begin with the 5 precepts. The 5 precepts, it is common for the lay follower, for the householder, to take on as part of the practice of the Buddhist path, to refrain from harming living creatures, from taking what is not given, from sexual misconduct, from false speech, and from intoxicants that cause heedlessness, right? That cause mindlessness. Well, see the chart here? No killing shows that we have respect for life. No stealing shows that we have respect for others' property. No sexual misconduct shows that we have respect for our pure nature. No lying shows that we have respect for honesty. And no intoxicants shows that we have respect for a clear mind. And we should also avoid the 10 causes of action. These are the kinds of behavior that the 5 precepts are intended to prevent us from committing. And here we have harming life, harming living creatures, taking what is not given, sexual misconduct, false speech, divisive speech, harsh speech, frivolous speech, greed, anger, and wrong views. So in these 10 actions, we have 3 of body, 4 of speech, and 3 of mind. And then we find speech, right, further elaborated as in right speech, broken into 4 aspects: false speech, malicious speech, harsh speech, or gossip. And these 5 precepts and the 10 causes of action include, therefore, the right speech and right action of the Eightfold Path. And the right livelihood, as we have mentioned earlier, basically is understood as making our living by means that avoid activity infringing on the right 5 precepts. And then the last 3 components of covetousness, ill will, and wrong view, greed, anger, and wrong view, emphasize the need to purify our mind too, besides body and speech. So when we take a look at the 10 unwholesome actions, we are looking at the purification of the body, speech, and mind. And within these 10 causes of unwholesome action, we actually include the 3 aspects of morality, right? Right speech, right action, and right livelihood. And of course, very closely associated with the 5 precepts. Now, let us then move on to take a look at vegetarianism. Now, there's no direct prescription against the eating of meat in the earliest Buddhist text. Buddhist monks and nuns who are dependent on what is offered to them were encouraged not to be choosy and are permitted to accept blameless meat. What do we mean by blameless meat? This refers to meat or food that they had not seen, right? That the monastics, monks and nuns had not seen, that they had not heard, or they had or suspected that the animals had been specifically killed or slaughtered to feed them. Yeah, in the days of the Buddha, and of course continuing to the Theravada tradition today, there's no prescription, right, to avoid meat, not to eat meat, right? What the Buddha said was that we should not accept blameless meat, and blameless meat refer to food that that we have not heard, that we have not seen, or that we have not suspected that have been killed for us. So basically, whatever meat that has been prepared by the householders that they are eating, we should eat them. The householders should not specifically kill any animal in order to provide alms during our alms round. This is the way of the blameless meat, right? Acceptance of eating of blameless meat. So this is so because we are not supposed to be fussy, right, in our food when we go for alms round. So accept whatever that has been prepared by the householders. Okay. Nonetheless, even in ancient times, right, even in the early times, vegetarianism was widely considered as an appropriate, as a suitable response to the first precept of not killing, right? Not harming living creatures. Eating no meat is respected as furthering the aspiration to live with compassion without harming living creatures. So in this regard, we can link Buddhism, particularly Mahayana Buddhism, and vegetarianism. How can we explore one of the core Buddhist values of not harming, the first precept, right? You guys can see in this picture here, we link it with vegetarianism. Now, the Mahayana Lankavatara Sutra argues against meat eating. Why? Because all beings have been our relatives in a past life. And because meat is smelly, right? Meat stinks. And if we eat meat, it can hinder our meditation. It can lead to bad health. It can lead to arrogance and rebirth, right? Because we think that we are higher creatures who can eat the lower creatures. And eating meat can lead to rebirth as carnivorous animals, right? Or deprived human beings. So these are some of the reasons provided in the Mahayana Sutra. You can see here in this picture, the Lankavatara Sutra, a Mahayana text translated for the first time from the original Sanskrit by a very famous Japanese Zen master, D.T. Suzuki, or Daisetsu Teitaro Suzuki. And here, the emphasis is on compassion, right? Not harming living creatures. May all that have life be delivered from suffering. Not to develop arrogance, to think that we are higher than the lower animals, and then kill them as our food. Okay? So from the earliest of times, Mahayana Buddhism has advocated vegetarianism. Buddhism is influential in Eastern Buddhism, referring to Buddhism associated with China, Japan, Korea, and Vietnam. It is the norm for Buddhist monastic community, for Buddhist monks and nuns, and for committed lay followers, for householders who are very pious and committed. They can also adopt vegetarianism. It is required as one of the Bodhisattva precepts in the Brahmajala Sutra, which is a supplementary monastic code for Chinese Mahayana monastics and observed by pious lay people. So for Mahayana monastics, right, like Chinese and Vietnamese monks and nuns, besides taking the monastic codes, we also need to take the Bodhisattva precepts. Besides the monastic precepts, we also need to take the Bodhisattva precepts. And this is given in the Brahmajala Sutra, right? You can see here, it's translated by Jesse Russell and Ronald Cohen. And this Bodhisattva precepts can also be observed by pious lay people. So on the right poster here, we see a precept transmission ceremony for the 5 precepts as well as for Bodhisattva precepts. Normally for lay people, they take about 10 Bodhisattva precepts. And this precepts transmission ceremony was conducted in a temple, Lingyan Mountain Temple in Canada, right? In Richmond, British Columbia, Canada. You can see the Lingyan Mountain Temple in this poster here. All right. And for householders or lay people, they can also choose to be vegetarian on special occasions, normally on the 1st day and on the 15th day of the lunar month. And of course, vegetarianism emphasizes compassion, right? So, okay, this is the first half of the lecture. We shall end on this note. Please go for a short break before we come back to the second half of lecture 7. Thank you.